Kevin Spacey is here. The two-time Oscar winner took time off from his day job at the Old Vic Theatre in London to portray the iconic villain Lex Luthor in Bryan Singer's Superman Returns. Here is the trailer for the film.
I know some people are asking a lot of questions now that I'm back. I think it's only fair that I answer those people.
Well, you're back, and everyone seems to be pretty happy about it.
Not everyone.
Lex Luthor.
Imagine cities, entire continents, all grown. To think that one could create a new world with such a simple little object.
Wow, that's really something, Lex.
Wait for it.
Lex, you're not a god.
Gods are selfish beings who fly around in little red capes and don't share their power with mankind.
See anything familiar?
See an old man's sick joke.
Tonight.
Radioactive pieces of his homeworld. It's deadly to him.
You're not seeing the big picture here. Now fly. My son, remember, you have great power.
This September will mark his third season as artistic director of the Old Vic. I am pleased to have him, Kevin Spacey, back at this table. Welcome back.
I'm very glad to see you, by the way.
So Superman Returns. The reviews, I mean, you just look at them, are terrific. They really are.
Well,
Bryan Singer is the director, we should say.
I think it's all down to Bryan Singer. You know, the movie's had sort of 18 years of trying to get back on track. You know, the franchise sort of fizzled out and gone through many different directors and incarnations. And finally, when I heard that Bryan was going to jump on and take over this franchise, and he called me and started talking to me about Lex Luthor, it was, for me, such an easy answer to say yes to him. He is... What was great about the experience, and I think what is a reflection of why the reviews are as positive as they are, is that Bryan is the same guy he was 10 years ago when we did Usual Suspects. Yeah. You know, and whether he's got a $5 million budget as he did then, you know, with a movie with a lot of actors that weren't all that well known, and certainly myself, I was just beginning, or he's got a movie that's this size, a sort of tentpole film. I think in the X-Men films, the first two that he did, you see that he's always been focused on character. He's always been interested in the relationships that people have in film. And he has a particular cinematic vocabulary and consciousness and vision that he's able to describe not just to actors, which is hugely beneficial, but to every other department. So I think that the whole look of the film has brought it up to date in a sense. The characters have matured into 2006. But it's also, you can see in the movie that he has such affection for the original Richard Donner movies that he's brought back a kind of style and a feel. It's not as cartoonish. It's matured in the sense that I think all the relationships in the film are deeper. It's certainly a darker Lex Luthor than
I mean, I think it's no secret, he comes back from Kryptonite.
Yeah.
And he finds that Lois...
Lois has moved on.
She's moved on.
Girls will do that.
They'll do that to you every time. They'll leave you and,
you know,
and move on. And so what he does, Clark Kent has been off in the Himalayas.
Right, exactly.
Yes. Finding himself.
Yes, finding himself, yes, exactly.
So he comes back. Now, the actor playing Clark Kent, is it unknown?
Yeah, Superman is unknown. Brandon Routh, actually, it shows how smart Bryan is. When he signed on to the movie, there had been a number of previous directors, and he said to Warner Brothers...
To this movie, this script.
To this, well, not this script.
But variations.
Variations of it.
Of a new Superman.
Yeah. He said, I want to see all the screen tests that any other directors did of actors because maybe they found a Superman there, but they didn't realize it. And so that's where he first saw Brandon, was in someone else's screen test. Yeah. And then he brought him back in. And I think he was a bartender at the time that he came in for this
Hello,
job.
this is Bryan Singer. You've got a $200 million budget.
You want to come
Would
put
you
on
play
a
Superman?
funny suit? Yeah.
You want to walk around in tights, huh?
Well, in a way, you know, I always thought that it was the smartest choice to find an unknown actor for this role. You know, you have to make this leap of faith that you can believe a guy can fly. And it's hard for us to remember now that Christopher Reeve was primarily unknown at the time that movie came out. Although I remember when I went to see the first Superman, because I was one of the first kids in line, because we were all acting students and we wanted to go see Brando. Brando was white hair. But when I was watching the film, I suddenly realized that I had seen Christopher Reeve in a play about 2 years before with Katharine Hepburn, called A Matter of Gravity, that was at the Ahmanson Theater. He played her grandson, and it was that play the producers of Superman saw and tested him for that movie. So I think, anyway, in a sense, I think that he's done very much an homage to the Donner films and wanted it to feel like a continuation of Part 2. He's conveniently ignored 3 and 4.
Which the audience did too. Although, I don't know, sometimes bad movies make good money, make a lot of money, I think.
In Hollywood? Is that true?
Yes. So, it cost about $200 million, they say?
I don't actually know.
Well, that's what
they paid me at least half of that. I don't really know what the exact figure is, but I also know that, you know, there's been a lot of stories about it being the biggest, most expensive movie ever made. That isn't true.
It's not true?
But what is true is that there was a lot of money on the movie before Bryan ever even started, because they had spent 18 years in development with other directors. So they were hiring scriptwriters, and it was probably well over $60 million that they'd spent before Bryan ever entered the picture.
And how time is this show? It opens tomorrow.
Well, actually, tonight it starts playing at 10 o'clock in some selected theaters, a kind of early, those that want to really rush out and see it tonight. Which is, by the way, everyone in America
wants to go see this movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because of
I've spoken to them all directly.
Yeah, but because they want to see what Lex Luthor is up to.
Well, it's Lex is up to his usual antics. You know, he's always been about land, always been about property,
really?
and this time he's about not just property, but almost entire continents.
Now, whereas Lex has been in prison.
Yeah, Lex has been in prison.
Yeah.
Someone asked me a couple of weeks ago, a journalist said, "Is there a lot of Donald Trump in Lex Luthor?" And I said, "No, but there's certainly some Ken Lay." and then I started reading stories about how I was inspired by Ken Lay.
Now, well, then who were you inspired by?
I wasn't. This was the kind of film where there's such a sort of iconic nature to this role, and certain things that you want to make sure that you include, because an audience has a certain expectation. So you want it to be funny. You want it to have a kind of the bickering relationship between...
it's the menace and the humor that make it.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, Parker Posey plays Kitty, my sidekick, sort of my Valerie Perrine. And she's wonderful, but they have a strange relationship.
Was that Gene Hackman?
It was Gene Hackman and Valerie Perrine. And Ned Beatty also played one of the henchmen in it. And so I think that in this case, Bryan definitely wanted a darker Lex Luthor than we'd seen before.
And in the end, do you confront Superman? Is that?
Oh yeah, I kicked the living.
Do you really?
Yeah, I can't say because we're on public television.
You understand kryptonite too, I mean, the weakness of Superman.
Absolutely,
don't you? All right. So when you got this, did you prepare in any way other than simply saying?
No, this is one of those cases
channeling into Brando.
Yeah, you know, this is one of those cases where I trust Bryan so completely.
Yeah.
And I felt that what they had done in terms of the script and the storyline was so strong that I am so happy to put myself in the hands of a director that I feel comfortable with, and I know... I mean, for example, I didn't even see the movie until last Wednesday. I saw it at the premiere as I waited. I wanted to wait because I didn't need to go check it out. I mean, I know Bryan would pick the best stuff, and when I saw it last week, I was very, very pleased that he took his time with this, with developing the story. He didn't rush it. He allowed all these characters to really emerge. And I think everybody does a terrific job, particularly, you know, Brandon. He's got an enormous amount on his shoulders in reviving this franchise, and he just carries it off with enormous ease.
Brando makes an appearance?
Brando, you know, I waited my whole life to work with Marlon Brando, and I finally get to do a scene with him. And, of course, you know, he didn't show up.
Let's take a look at a scene. This is, do you know the story of Prometheus? Lex tells Kitty, who is Parker Posey. Here it is.
Do you know the story of Prometheus?
No, of course you don't.
Prometheus was a god who stole the power of fire from the other gods and gave control of it to mortals. In essence, he gave us technology. He gave us power.
So we're stealing fire? In the Arctic?
Actually, sort of. You see, whoever controls technology controls the world. The Roman Empire ruled the world because they built roads. The British Empire ruled the world because they built ships. America, the atom bomb, and so on and so forth. I just want what Prometheus wanted.
Sounds great, Lex. But you're not a god.
Gods are selfish beings who fly around in little red capes and don't share their power with mankind.
No, I don't want to be a god. I just want to bring fire to the people.
And I want my cut.
Before we leave this subject, tell me a little bit more about Lex Luthor.
Oh, man. Well, gosh, it's astounding to me that this thing has been around since 1938, you know, as a comic strip. And over the years, it's gone through so many different incarnations. It was a huge radio program for many, many years, you know, during the war. And then it became a television series, and then more television series, and then the Donner films. It's funny. He's always sort of remained the same from the beginning. I mean, he's always, as I said, been about land, been about property.
Right,
he's a capitalist.
And about evil.
And about evil, whatever that is.
I mean, he doesn't care how many people he kills.
No, certainly not in this film. He's out for revenge in this film. And also Brian said, I really want this Lex to be a real nemesis to Superman, so that at times in the movie when Superman is at his most vulnerable, you actually think Lex Luthor's going to win. And there's some pretty...
And you think that comes through to the audience. They actually...
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I think that's a great compliment to Brian in terms of being able to create a sense of how are they ever going to get out of this. You know, at the end of the day, Superman's going to win.
Sure.
You know, I mean, we're not going to kill Superman.
Because we have no sequel.
Because we have no sequel. And I have to, you know, feed my theater habit.
Exactly.
But the truth is, it's interesting that, you know, in the context of the film, there's harrowing situations where you think, how are they ever going to get out of it? But I think that's a great, you know, that's the sort of leap you have to take.
Let me go to the old Vic, which is something I should do, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, as often as you can. Why haven't you bought a season pass?
Well, I don't know. How much does it cost?
Lots for you,
Lots
Charlie.
for me, I know. All right. But you went over there, and there was this interesting quote I read in which you basically thought you had, with the Academy Award and with the things that you have done, you thought, I don't have anything else to prove as an actor. I am a movie star. Some films had done really well, some films hadn't done so well, but you were happy with your career. But you wanted something different. Just tell me where you were going and what it was so about.
I think I got to a place sort of at the end of '99 into 2000 where I thought, all right, I've had all this extraordinary personal success. I've reached the top of my profession. I've been motivated and driven and ambitious, you know, my whole life. And it's, in large measure, been about, you know, developing in my own career and my own work and my own challenges. And I got to a place where I thought, well, now what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to spend the next 10 years trying to top myself? Am I supposed to play this game of who's hot, who's not, who's in, who's out, how much movies your money makes or costs, and all that? It's just that whole game that no matter how much you try to distance yourself from, you find yourself falling into. And I thought, what I really want to do now with my life is to do something that is bigger than myself, something that has very little to do with my own personal ambitions. But I want to do things now, as I did with TriggerStreet.com, which we'll talk about, as I've always done, in the sense that I look at the fact that I was given opportunities when I was young by a lot of people who believed in me. I want to now give those opportunities back because, as our friend Jack Lemmon used to say, if you've done well in the industry you wanted to do well in, then it is your obligation to send the elevator back down. And so a lot of the work that we're doing at the Old Vic that doesn't get a lot of attention is not just the putting on of plays. It's a huge educational department that we run in using the tools of theater in order to help educate kids and teach them how to collaborate with each other and gain in their own self-confidence. And the workshops that we run through schools, the workshops that we do at the theater, the nights that all these kids come in, our student seats policy, our development of emerging artists, all of this stuff where you can see if you bring people together, you give them an opportunity, you can change their lives. And it doesn't matter if they want to go in the arts or not. And in very much the same way what TriggerStreet.com has been doing over these last 3.5 years that it's been up. We're about to relaunch it.
And what is TriggerStreet.com?
Well, TriggerStreet.com is something that Dana Brunetti, my business partner and great friend, created. It was his idea, and it was a way in which I felt at a certain point I got cut off from a pipeline of young talent, because you start to do well and lawyers say you can't take that script in a cafe that somebody wants to hand you. You can't do it. So I said there's got to be a way for us to break through it. Yeah, well, you know, we live in a very, you know, lawyerly society. And so I said there's got to be a way to protect ourselves as a company and me as an individual and still open up that pipeline. So we created the website as a platform for emerging filmmakers and screenwriters. And it's now going to expand on the 30th of this month into now including plays, short stories, novels, and we've announced a contest we're going to have, which is make your own Budweiser commercial, because Bud sponsors the whole site. And
this is a place where you submit scripts?
You can submit scripts in the screenplay form. You can upload your movies that you've made, and the community, which is now you know, well over 150,000 members around the world, they run the site. They're the ones that judge the material. They're the ones that pick the things that go into the top 10, and we've taken all of our top 10 winners to film festivals all around the world. And it is this fantastic place where people who don't have access, don't have agents, don't have the ability to knock on doors in New York or LA, have a place to show their work. And people have sold their screenplays, people have gotten agents, people have gotten jobs. It's been a fantastic thing. And so both that work, the work that I'm doing at the Vic, is all about trying to take everything that's happened for me and using it to some good for a lot of other people.
And you'll continue to make films when good roles come along?
When good roles come along. You know, I'm going to make this film that we're producing at Sony about the MIT. You like this idea. The MIT card counters.
It's called 21, isn't it?
It's called 21.
There's a bunch of guys from MIT who were very smart. They went to Las Vegas and won
and they made millions of dollars. And
then
they were
Las Vegas realized what they were doing. And
they were taught by the character that I'm going to play, who's the professor who recruited these kids and then taught them how to do it. And then, so we're going to shoot that. Robert Luketic's directing that in January, so we'll do that. I'm going to make a film while I'm doing Moon from the Misbegotten, which opens our 3rd season at the Vic this fall, making a film in London with Vince Vaughn and Paul Giamatti. That's a very funny piece called Joe Claus.
Oh, right. Santa Claus's brother that we don't know anything about.
He never got any credit.
right.
And I play an efficiency expert who's brought in to possibly farm out all the work out of the North Pole to another country.
I saw a documentary here on public television about Eugene O'Neill. Is he, for you, by far the best American playwright?
Yeah, I mean, there will probably always be debates about who is the greatest American playwright. But for me, I think O'Neill's work, when I started reading it when I was young, and I was in junior high school when I started being exposed to that kind of writing, it just always spoke to me. There was just something about the struggle that O'Neill went through, the way in which he wrote, the honesty of how he wrote, the kinds of characters that he wrote, that I just hear them and I understand them. And for me to do Moon from the Misbegotten, which many people may not know, is a sequel to Long Day's Journey into Night. It takes the older alcoholic brother of Edmund, Jamie Tyrone, and carries him on further in life, because O'Neill always felt that Long Day's Journey, he had not done justice to his brother, and he wanted to complete his story. So he wrote a play about redemption and forgiveness.
His best stuff was about his family.
Yeah, no question. And you know, there's so much of Jamie in Hickey in Iceman Cometh, for example. There's those characteristics in a lot of O'Neill's characters exist, and I've always wanted to get a crack at this play, and I'm enormously honored.
You've never done it before?
I've never done Moon.
That's what I mean. But you're doing that at Old Vic.
Doing that at the Old Vic.
In September, October?
In September. We opened September 15th, our first performance, and I'm lucky that Howard Davies, who directed Iceman Cometh, is directing again.
Which was here on Broadway.
It was here on Broadway. And the whole design team is coming back. And our hope is, if the production is up and it does well, that we might come to New York with it. But we won't know that until we get it up.
The Old Vic, how do you assess your stewardship so far?
We're 19 months old. We've done 8 plays, 6 of which have gone down very well, been big hits for us, 2 of which didn't go down very well. So our average is not bad. And we've had over 425,000 members of the public purchase tickets for our first productions. That, for us, is a very encouraging sign, because what we've been grappling with and fighting against is a 33-year, slightly checkered history of the Old Vic since Olivier left and the National Theatre moved into their building. To try to return the Old Vic as a destination theater.
The National Theatre, the Old Vic was a home for the National Theatre.
Exactly.
For a number of years while they were...
14 seasons before they built their own building. And My honest belief is that it's way too early to make assessments.
What is it giving you?
Well, it has provided me with an opportunity to, first of all, come back to the thing that I love more than anything else, which is the live theater. Not just as an actor, but to be spending the amount of time we are in developing new work and developing playwrights and working with directors like Trevor Nunn, who did our production of Richard II last fall, to be planning the work that we're doing with Stephen Fry or Robert Lindsay or Ed Hall or Anthony Page. The opportunity to work with some of the greats and the soon-to-be great and soon-to-be-discovered talent, not just in England, but in the United States. You know, I look back at a person like Sam Wanamaker, who had a dream many, many years ago to build a Globe Theater on the South Bank, and he was dismissed and derided and attacked. An enormous amount of commentary, negative commentary, was written about his dream. And he kept his head high. And that Globe Theater, which he never lived to see open, but that he started, is now a cultural institution in London. And one of the greatest things to go to the Globe and see all these kids with backpacks seeing their first Shakespeare show. I want to build a theater that is going to last long after I'm gone. And to build a theater company is not easy. You know, I think to some degree, in Britain, we've gotten used to a national theater that's been around since the early 1960s, or the Royal Court, or the Dunmore, or the Almeida. It's been a long time since a brand new theater company that's getting this kind of profile has started. And therefore, why I made a 10-year commitment to it is that I just think you can't do it in a couple seasons. You know, we need 5 years to establish ourselves. We need 5 more years to be able to lay the foundations so that when we find a successor to take over my role, this theater company is going to thrive, and the Old Vic will be a producing theater company, as it always should be, because it is a remarkable, not just historical building, but it's a remarkable live place to work.
How many does it seat?
1,045 seats.
Right.
Yeah, it's 1,000 seats.
You like London?
I do like London.
It's right for you at this time in your life?
Yeah, and it's an interesting time to be out of the United States.
Why is that?
Because I don't like it here that much.
You don't like the government?
I don't like the government.
You have nothing about America that you don't
like. No, I adore
America.
And I suppose the things that I miss are my friends and, you know, the opportunity to walk through New York whenever I want. But I do get here, you know, quite often. But it's also interesting to view the world and politics and how things are judged in a slightly different way and how they're presented in a slightly different way outside of the United States as they are inside the United States.
What would you change about your life?
Oh, gosh. Well, right now, I don't think I would. Right now, I feel like I've made the change that I really wanted to make. You know, this notion of moving to London and sort of starting a new life in a new country started with me in '99. I did it. I moved there in 2003. I've been there 3.5 years. I've made great friends since I've been there. I have a remarkable staff that surrounds me at the Old Vic and helps me do the work I need to do there. I have a remarkable staff back in Los Angeles at Trigger Street who help me do the work that I need to do there. And I feel like there's a lot going on, and there's an enormous amount of plates spinning, but I have such good people who help me manage my life, and hopefully not too many things fall through the cracks.
Great to see you.
You too.
Well, it's really a pleasure to have you on this broadcast and to see a movie that you're in that's doing extraordinarily well. We don't know that yet, but all expectations are. So go to the theater.
Go to the theater.
Go to the movies.
Go to the movies. And you know, for people who like IMAX, you know, it's also on IMAX.
Yeah, okay.
So there's a large portion of the movie that people are going to watch in 3D.
And go to the Old Vic.
And go to the Old Vic.
And if you have a play...
And go to triggerstreet.com.
Go to triggerstreet.com.
Exactly.
And if you can't go to the Old Vic, send your dollars and...
Definitely send your dollars. No, we are. We're about to raise $25 million to renovate the theater.
Yeah.
So I will be coming to America soon, and
I'll expect a call from Uncle Kevin.
I'll be calling you, not for money, but for just, you know, all those tentacles
to
that
bless
you
it.
have. Yes.
To bless it.
Get me Buffett's number.
Don't do that. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.